try over here. Perfect. Get started in a couple places and we'll be all set. Missing a few things here. Okay. That's a lot. Who am I posting as? Am I posting as me or am I posting as somebody else? I'm not sure who I'm posting as. Alright. Hi everybody, welcome for joining me. Getting all set up here, getting ready to go. Got this new kit that I want to put together. But I also am trying to get this shared to all of the places. And for some reason my browser is not going to update for me. But that's okay. I'm just going to go ahead and get started. Alright, so the kit that I have this evening is an Ivy Welcome Kit, and the kit will come with one package of thin stripe fabric mesh, 5 yards each of 3 different ribbons. You've got a 2.5 inch, a 1.5 inch, and a 1.5 inch, and these are wired canvas ribbons. An MDF welcome sign, 16 color coordinated pipe cleaners, 2 cable mounts to attach the sign to the kit, and then items that I suggest that you have is either a pair of scissors or a rotary cutter to be able to cut the mesh, some sort of super glue. I'm using DAP rapid fuse glue to attach the cable mounts to the back of the sign. And then if you are going to use a rotary cutter, I suggest that you have some sort of self-healing mat so that because the blades on the rotary cutter are very sharp. You also will receive, and I haven't grabbed yet, a base, a frame to be able to attach all this to. So let me grab a 14-inch wire frame that's also included with the kit. All right. Okay, also included in the kit is a 14-inch wire frame as well. All right, so to begin, the first thing I want to do is I want to prepare my sign so it has plenty of time to dry while I am making the base. So to do that, I can do one of two things. I can either, with this string, I can either cut off the string or I can staple it down. I'm just going to cut off the string because I don't really have a need for the string since I'm going to be adding the cable tie mounts on. And then the next thing that I want to do is I want to be able to put some of my super glue down, and I'm going to put it in 2 different places on each side. And then I'm going to take the backing off of the cable mount. And the reason that I add the DAP Rapid Fuse glue is because I want this cable mount to stick to the sign no matter what the weather condition is. So if you live in an area that is very, very warm or humid, the adhesive will melt and your sign would fall off. So I don't want that to happen. So I'm just going to super glue the cable mounts on, and then I always like to add a little extra super glue to my cable mounts, because I've had the adhesive inside the plastic casing actually release from the foam adhesive. So before I add any additional super glue, I'm just going to add 2 of my pipe cleaners to my cable mounts, and then I'll add a little bit more of the super glue. On the cable tie mounts, you'll see, let's see if I can zoom in a little bit here. Let me change my screen so I can show you exactly what it is that I want to show you. Okay, so get it out in the right light as well. I've got a lot of glare because of the studio lighting in my room. But on the cable mount tie, on each side, there's a little tiny hole here. And I think that you can see that, maybe, or not. I don't know. Maybe you can see it. Anyway, I like to add a little extra super glue in there because that makes sure that something is stuck to the adhesive on the inside, and then the sign doesn't fall out. And I've had that happen to me. I actually had a sign hanging, or a wreath hanging in a salon last summer, and it was near the front door of the salon, so it was near direct sunlight. And the next time I went into the salon owner informed me that my wreath had broke, is the way that she put it. And so she had pulled it down and tried to stick the cable mount backing back on. And by the time I got there, because it was no longer in the sun, of course it was sticking just fine. So that's when I learned that the heat will melt the adhesive that makes the foam stay in the plastic casing. That was a lot to say. So I've got these in here. And now I'm just going to set this aside so that all of that can set. And I'm also going to zoom you guys back out so that you can see where I'm going from there. Okay, so now the next thing that I want to do is I would like to set my frame. So I'm just going to do a standard 12 pipe cleaners. And when I say standard 12 pipe cleaners, there's 6 sections. And so I'm going to start here with my first crossbar. So on the wreath frame itself, each section has a crossbar that goes across each ring. And then there's an outer ring, which I consider to be ring number 1, and then ring number 2, ring number 3, and ring number 4. So I'm going to take this across my crossbar, and I'm going to take my pipe cleaner about in half and wrap it around bars 1 and 2. And I'm going to go to each crossbar and do that. And this will make my outside layer where I can put mesh. Quickly add those in. Now there are some people who make wreaths that are concerned that their pipe cleaners will move after they tie them onto the base, and if that is a concern of yours, you can always take a little hot glue and you can hot glue them in the middle as well to keep them from moving. But I know that once I get all my mesh on here, these are going to stay exactly where I want them to stay, so I'm not going to worry about adding any hot glue in. So I've got my 6 on the outside, 1 on each of the crossbars, and then I'm going to go to the middle part of the intersections, or the inner part of the sections, so, and wrap these pipe cleaners around bars 3 and 4. So, and again, I'm not exact, I'm just eyeballing where the middle is, because once I have mesh on here, it won't matter, because it'll be full enough once I've got the wreath complete that you won't be able to see through and see that they're off just a little bit if they happen to be off just a little bit. All right, so we've got 2 more to add. And then with your kit, you have 2 additional pipe cleaners left, and that is for our bows. So I'm going to move these pipe cleaners over to the side and out of the way. And now I'm ready to begin cutting my mesh and attaching it. So give me a moment while I open it. It's going to be a little bit loud. Okay, so now I've got this open, and I'm going to attach it to my mesh roller. My mesh roller is not fancy. I literally have a hanger that I've broken in half, and then I have a little basket from the Dollar Tree that I use as kind of my mesh roller. And then I'm going to move my base out of the way as well, and I'm ready now to cut my mesh. So the big decision is, what kind of cuts do I want to use, or what kind of roll do I want on the mesh? And this is a really nice heavy fabric mesh. So for this, what I'd like to do is just some woodland ruffles, or a cruffle, depending on how you may have heard them before. And I like that because it will hide any frayed ends, because they will be rolled inside. So I'm going to cut these at about 20 inches, and I'm going to just cut the entire, or I'm going to cut 12 pieces out of it. So I'm at the 30 mark, so I'm going to cut at 20, or 30 minus 20 is 10. So I'm going to cut at the 10-inch mark. And like I said, I'm going to cut 12 pieces of that. So again, back out to my 30. Cutting at my 10, it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, now my mesh is attacking me. 6, 7. Well, hello, Darren Cameron. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And here's 8. 9, 10, 11, and here's 12. Okay, so there's the 12 pieces of mesh. On my roll, I have just a little bit left, So this was a good size cut for 12 stems. And now I'm just going to do what is called the woodland ruffle. I currently have a pipe cleaner stuck in there. So the way that this works, let me grab a clothespin. Now the way that this type of roll works, push this out of the way, is you take your mesh, curl side up, so it's all curly this way for you, and then you're going to just curl 3 or 4 times. So 1, 2, 3, and then you're going to take, this is a clothespin, you'll take a clothespin or a chip clip or something like that, and you'll clip that end, and then you'll do the same thing on this side. So 1, 2, 3, and then you just pull your fingers and pull the mesh up to the middle. And then what that does is that puts the cut ends on the inside, so that if it were to fray, you wouldn't be able to see any of that fraying. And it also gives you some nice curls. Alright, so what I'm doing with this now is I'm adding this to my base, and I'm going to try to push this down as close as I can to the middle of the base. And I'm going to pull it between my pipe cleaners, so I'm going to pull it tight, and then I'm going to twist it and twist it. And that's what I'm going to do for all 12 of these. So again, curl side up, 1, 2, 3, clip, 1, 2, 3, ruffle, and I'm going to put it on the base. So I'm just going to move that over there and work with this one that is in my way all the time, so that it won't be in my way anymore. Now, if you order the kit from me, you will also receive a clothespin, so that you have a way to clip your mesh. I know that growing up, having clothespins in our house was something that we always had, but in our home, we don't have clothespins because we don't hang anything out to dry. Everything goes in the dryer. So sometimes finding a clip can be challenging, so I want to make sure that when you purchase the kit, that you get literally everything that you need to help you create your wreath. So 1, 2, 3, clip. And 1, 2, 3, ruffle. So if you're joining me, please drop in a hello. I can see your comments and I will respond. It also helps me with knowing that you can hear me. A lot of the time I've done this and I've gone in a whole hour before I realized I didn't have any audio. So 1, 2, 3, clip. 1, 2, 3, ruffle. And what I like about this kit in itself is that the materials that I've selected aren't all a solid green, right? So the fabric mesh itself is a moss, they call it fresh, what do they call it? Let me pull it back out. It's called fresh green and moss, and so it has like 3 different colors of green in it. And then the ribbons themselves also have different variants of green, so are different hues or tints. So I really like that it's not just one color. Like an actual ivy plant has the different coloration in it. So I tried to pull out some of those variations in color, add different textures. And just like that, I've finished the bottom layer of my wreath, and I'm going to move into my top ring now. So I have 6 more pieces of mesh that I'm going to add to this wreath. And I'm surprised the fabric mesh is sticking to itself, because usually the fabric mesh doesn't. So 1, 2, 3. The other thing I like about fabric mesh, in addition to it being a thicker mesh, is that it also feels it's soft because it's fabric. 1, 2, 3. So I do like that about it as well. You should be, hopefully you are noticing that I am pushing the sides up to the pieces that are next to the item that I add to the base, and I'm doing that because I'd like there to be some volume in my ruffles, and I want those curls to kind of stand up a little bit too. So I'm almost done with my base. I've only got 4 more to add on. So I'll get these added. And then we'll play with the fun things, which is, for me, the ribbon. I think the ribbon is always the most fun for me. Dumping that out. Just a second. I'd scroll down so that I can see the other comment. Thank you, Darren, for confirming that you can hear me. I appreciate that. Ruffle. Oh no, I think I have an escapee. Pretty sure I cut 12 pieces of mesh, but I only have 1. On my desk. I wonder where it went. Do you ever have that problem? You just push all your supplies on the floor. 2, 3. Oh, I see it. Ah. It is off my desk, but it's within reach. Okay. And there's the last one. It went over the side where the sign is at. Okay. So 1, 2, 3. Clipping. And 1, 2, 3 ruffle. All right, and then now the base for this wreath kit has now been put together using the woodland ruffle method. Okay, so now that I've got the base put together, the next thing that I want to do is I want to add my sign. And so for this wreath, I think that I'd like to have my sign sit somewhere near the bottom. So for that, I'm just going to put this somewhere around where my pipe cleaners themselves will go like at 4 o'clock and like 7 o'clock. If I were to think about the frame as a clock. So that's where I'm going to feed these through to. One reason that I'm adding my sign before I add anything else is so that I know exactly what it is that I need to cover. And I also get to cheat a little bit, right? So if I cheat a little bit, it allows me, and what I mean by that, I should say, is that it allows me to turn my wreath over, and then I can pull and put the sign on tightly without smashing any bows. So I'm trying to pull that on. And I put this on as if I were using multiple rolls of mesh. So I have really long ties. Just shaking it a little bit to make sure that it's not going to move. And I'm just wrapping these pipe cleaners around the base. I want anything that could be pokey to be facing inside because I don't want anything to scratch a door. All right, so I've got the sign on. It's sitting at a good location. And now the next thing that I will do is I'm going to make bows. So included in the kit are 5 yards of each type of ribbon that you see here. I have the olive, and it's kind of like a yellowish color, and then there's a green with a couple different shades of green, and then this really pretty ivy themed 1.5 inch ribbon. Okay, now to make the bows, I am going to use a bow maker, and when you do this, you can either use a Bowdabra or you can use like an easy bow maker. There are some people that have the Pro Bow by the hand, or they have the 4-in-1, and there are people that are also crafty enough to be able to hand tie a bow, and I am not a hand bow kind of girl. So what I'm going to do is I want to make 3 bows that are going to fit on this wreath, and I'm just going to do simple 3-2-1 bows, which means I'll have 3 loops and then 2 loops and then 1 loop. And I don't want them to have really long tails because I don't want to cover up my sign. So I'm going to start off with just a simple 6-inch tail. And with this ribbon, you can tell what the front and the back is based off of the stitch. So we want to make sure that we have the pretty side up or the stitch facing down. And I'm just going to take this and scrunch it and place it in my bow holder, or my spool, or my ribbon holder. And then I'm going to turn it so that the stitch is facing up. And I'm going to start off with just a 5-inch bow on this one, or a 5-inch loop. So I'm going to stick that in, make sure I've got a 5-inch, and then I'm going to twist so that again I've got my stitch up. And I'm coming out to the 5-inch mark on my easy bow maker. I'm going to pull that in. And then once I get it in, I'm going to twist it. I'm going to do that 2 more times on each side. Okay. So there's, out of 3, 2, 1, there's 2. And here's the 1. And then again, I'm going to have a 6-inch tail on the ribbon. So let me find the scissors that I hid from myself. And I'll cut that off. there's the bottom layer. And then I'm going to then do the ivy. And the ivy is just going to be 2 loops. And I'm going to make it about 1 inch shorter. So I'm still going to go with that 6-inch tail. Then I'm going to do about a 4-inch loop on this one. And again, I'm only doing 2 loops on each side with this ribbon. So there's 2 loops. They're about the same length. And then I'll cut off my tail. And then I'm going to do 1 loop. So again, give myself a tail, come in just a little bit, about 1 inch. So I'll have about a 3-inch loop. Make sure my stitch slide is down. Come in about 1 inch, both sides, and then again leave myself a tail. Okay, then I'm going to come to one of my pipe cleaners that I had, and I'm going to cut this in half because I don't need to have a really long tail. So using a pair of scissors, I am just taking this pipe cleaner and snipping it in half. Okay, so I didn't use my ribbon scissors. I used a pair of older scissors that I have. And then I'm going to take this pipe cleaner and I'm going to bring it along the bottom and pull it over just a bit. I want to pull it around to the back. So let me put my hands back in the frame here. And I'll zoom in just a little bit. Okay. So I've got 1 end here and here's the other end. I'm going to pull those 2 together. And then I'm going to actually twist the bow itself to give me a really nice tight loop. And then I'm going to pull these out and up. And again, because if this is with a kit, you don't have to do it the way that I'm doing it. This is just an example of how you could use the supplies that are coming to you in the kit itself. If you have another method that you would prefer, or if you don't want to have bows and you just would like to have tails on your wreath, you're completely able to do that. One nice thing about purchasing a kit is that you get everything you need to create a wreath without having a lot of extra supplies left over, so you don't have to store them all. It's also kind of fun because you make something pretty and you can hang it up and there you go. Alright, so then what I want to do is I want to do what's called dovetailing my ribbon tails here, and so for that all I'm doing is I'm going to bring them close together, wire to wire, and then I'm going to cut it a V so that I get a nice V on the end. I'm going to do that for all 6 ends that I have. And then I will get ready to attach this to the wreath base. And the reason I want to attach it to the wreath base before I fiddle with it some more is because once the bow is attached, it makes it easier to tug on the loops than if I were to try to continue to fidget with it while it's loose. Okay, so I'm reaching back to the back here of where I want this bow to sit, and I'm just feeling along the base for one of those rings that we talked about. We had rings 1, 2, 3, and 4, so I'm just feeling for a ring, and then I'm going to wrap the pipe cleaner around one of those rings so that my bow is securely attached. And now that it's securely attached, I can come in and I can pull, move this over a little bit so you can see. Now that I've got it attached, I can come in and I can kind of pull these loops and these tails around a little bit more and have a little bit better control over where they're going to go. Now the ribbon that you receive in the kit itself is wired ribbon, so it behaves really well, and it will also curl nicely for you. All I'm doing is I'm running my hands down the ribbon, down the tails, kind of like the way a stylist styles hair or goes to cut hair, right? And that is just giving this ribbon a nice curl. Just a little bit of volume. And then I want to pull these loops out so that they're not hidden by another tail or its own tail. Okay, and then let me zoom out so that you can see better. Okay. And again, I'm fluffing the loops on the bow and curling the tails a little bit. So that's made a really pretty bow for this wreath. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and make another bow. And this time I'll use the Bodabra. The Bodabra doesn't have measurements on it the way that the Easy Bow Maker does. So for this one, what I do, if I have my cutting mat out, is I set it on a specific mark. For me, it's going to be the 20 mark. And then I use that as my measurements. And I'm going to make this bow exactly like I made the last bow. Okay, so it's going to have a 6-inch tail, a 5-inch loop, 3 times, and then it's going to have 2 4-inch loops and then 2 3-inch loops. Okay, so back out to the 5-inch mark, twist, and twist. So there's 2. I feel like my workspace has gotten smaller this evening. And then there's 3. Okay, and I want to make sure that my stitch side stays down on this tail. And I'm going to cut it off. So again, I'm going to find a mark, count out about 6 inches and cut that off. Okay, so that leaves me about that much ribbon, and I'll use that in the last bow that I create. Okay, so then I'm going to go ahead and take, just like I did in the first bow, I'm going to take the ivy, and I'll do two bows on or 2 loops on each side. These are going to be just a little bit smaller than the base was. And then I've got the green. And this is going to be 1 loop. Again, about 1 inch smaller than the last layer. And I'll cut those off. And I'm going to find my pipe cleaner. That's not the one. That's not the one. I'm looking for the half that I had. Okay, I misplaced that, but I have a half wandering around here somewhere. So I'm going to gently lift this out of the bow holder. The bow dabber that was the one I used. And I'm going to bring this around and I'm going to twist the bow itself. So I've got this down here and around, and I'm twisting. It's really weird that I lost that pipe cleaner. And then I'm going to attach this one on the other side. Okay, so I want it to be at about the same location that the one that I originally attached was at. Right, I want to have some symmetry. And again, I'm just feeling along my wreath base, along those rings. I'm going to pull this in and wrap that pipe cleaner around. And now that I've got that attached, I'm going to pull my loops, fluff them out. I'm just putting my fingers in. Poofing them up. Making my tails go in different directions. And I'll do the same thing with the ivy. Pull those out. Finally, with my middle loops, I'll pull those. Okay, again, I'm going to do a dovetail on the ends that are straight. Again, I'm just cutting a V. And you can make these as long or as short as you want. What I like about cutting the tails on the bow after I get the bow on the wreath is that it allows me to see where they're going to sit and if they're going to cover up anything. And I think I got, did I get all 6 of them? I did. Okay. So here I am. And I'm just going to do like I did on the previous bow, and I'm going to pull these tails between my index and my middle fingers to give that wire a little bit of curve. pull these bottom loops out. And make sure that their tails are also slightly curved. Okay. All right, so there we are with 2 bows. And then I'm going to make a bow that'll go here in the middle at the top. But it's not going to be the same as these 2 bows on the sides. It's going to end up looking a little bit different. And I can see now, looking in the camera, that this needs to face in a little bit. Okay, and I pulled it off of the base. Didn't pull it tight enough earlier. Okay, so again, I'm just looking in the camera so I can see where it sits. And then I'm going to take this crazy bow and its pipe cleaner and twist it around the base. And I'll readjust it. Okay, so that's really pretty. All right, so let's see what I've got left over. I have about 27 inches of the moss colored left over, and then I have several feet of the 1.5. So let me see what I've got here. How many feet do I have? So I have a 12-inch board that I'm going to use to count how many feet I have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Got a little over 6 feet of ivy, and then 5, 6, 7, 8, about 9.5 feet of the green left over. All right, so, and then I have this one piece here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to use the ivy as ribbon tails around the base. So that's going to be 6 feet. And I'll do that with the green. So I'm going to cut all of that off. And then I'm going to cut them in half, or cut them at the loops here at the end. And then I'm also going to go ahead and dovetail these ends. So I'm going to dovetail these the same way that I dovetailed the ends that were on the bows. I'm just going to bring the wires together and cut in a V. All right, so now I've got some ribbon tails left over, are ready to go, and I'm going to attach these to the base of the wreath. Okay, so I'm going to take one of each color. I like the ivy the best, so I'm going to put it on top of what I put inside of my twist ties or my pipe cleaners. And I'm gonna, so I folded it in half and I'm gonna scrunch it, and then I'm gonna run these between my index and my middle fingers to kind of make them a little curled. And then I'm gonna come down here to the base where I had added my mesh. I'm gonna add these in, and then I'm gonna twist, and then I'm gonna snip them off. So I'm gonna get my wire cutters out, and I'm just going to snip these off and push those down. And then I'm going to take the ribbon and pull it into an X and curl this really nicely. Okay. Do that again. Again, I like the ivy the best. I want it to be on top. And I'm just putting these wherever I can see the pipe cleaner that I had on the base. I've covered up quite a bit of it with the signs, but I don't want to be able to see through to the base. And so I'm doing twist, twist, and then I'm clipping. Pushing those down. And now for this X, I've got the ivy here. So I don't want the ivies to be next to each other. So when I'm pulling my X's, I want to make sure that the green and the ivy are next to each other at each piece of the X. Those there, there. Curl these around. Again, I'm just pulling on this wire to warm it up a little bit so that I can give it some curl. I've got 3 left. I'll move these up towards the top. Putting it in, snipping the end off, pulling these nice tails apart. got one more to add. So I'll add that to the top as well. And then I'll determine what to do with that leftover ribbon. Now another option for this kit would have been to not make 2 bows, but to put the ribbon tails in every single tie, and all 12 of the ties, and then just make 1 bow. Alright, so I'm going to pull the last of my ribbon out. This is what the wreath looks like so far. So far it's looking pretty good. And let's see, how do I want to do this? Sure what I want to do with this one, so I'm just going to cut this in half. So I have 2 pieces. Put a stitch side down. And I'm just going to make these tails. Going to pull these in opposite directions, and then I'm going to use whatever I've got left here to make a little funky bow. Alright, so let's see how many loops I can get here. It might just be 2 on each side. Looking for the other half of that pipe cleaner that I had earlier. So I want to use the supplies that I provided to you in the kit. Okay. Well, I'm going to be creative. I'm taking the ends of these cut ones. I'm just going to twist them together so that I eventually end up with something that's long enough to wrap around this little bit of ribbon. So I totally lost that half of the pipe cleaner. It's crazy. I'm going to pull this little tiny bow out. And I'm saying that it's little tiny just because it's not super thick. I'm going to wrap this pipe cleaner around that, and just like I did with the 2 big bows, I'm going to pinch it and pull them together and twist to make that tight. Okay, now if you are smarter than I am and you don't lose that other half of the pipe cleaner, then you won't have to do what I just did and take some of your scraps and twist them together to give you something to wrap the bow. Okay, so this has 6 tails, 4 loops. I did twist enough together to be able to add this to the wreath base, and I'm trying to decide if I want to put it at the bottom, and I think I am going to add this to the bottom. So I'm just going to add this to my outer ring underneath my sign, and then once I get it attached, I'll fluff it up. Still looking for that pipe cleaner. Okay. All right, so now what I've done is I've added this. So the tails are just a little bit long for the way I want them to sit. So I'm going to give those a little bit of a trim. Not much, because I do like the volume that they're showing. And so we're literally left move all my garbage out of the way with that much ribbon. That's all that's left of the 5 yards that we started with. And we were able to make 2 bows, 3 bows essentially, and add some ribbon tails to our wreath. Okay, so I'm going to pull these and drop that into the garbage can, and I'm going to zoom out all the way so that you can see the wreath that kit makes, or a version of what that kit can make. Okay, so it makes a really pretty. This one is 22 inches. This one makes about a 22-inch wreath with the way that I have used the materials included in the kit. So I hope that you enjoyed watching this and that you picked up some pointers. Thank you so much for purchasing my kit. If you haven't purchased the kit and you'd like to, I do have the link down below to my Etsy store where it is available for purchase. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good night, everybody.